And in planting a church with a vision like Renovation, which is aimed toward community transformation as well as individual transformation, church planting is perhaps the best way to do that because you're starting fresh. But have you seen any established churches able to retool themselves in order to do the kind of ministry you're describing?
So Renovation has very much in our efforts been established as a church that's not only focused on seeing the individual person transform, but really seeing the community transformed around it. And I do believe that church planting gives you an advantage at that because you're starting from scratch, and there are no presuppositions, there's no history, there's no former narrative to try and work against. As far as established churches that I've seen retool themselves or transition themselves in this direction, I honestly can't say that I've seen it happen in a church. I don't know. I mean, it would be a guesstimation, but older than 15 years. I would say the best example I can think of offhand is the Austin Stone in Texas, which was a church plant. And somewhere about 5 to 7 years in, I believe they're about 12 years old now, they begin to make that shift to some small measure. And Pastor Matt Carter and I have talked about this in detail and how as a mega church, so you're looking at almost 10,000 people there, how they can continue to turn this big cruise ship, so to speak. But other than them, I can't name any established church that I've seen make that transition.
Do you think it's possible?
I do think it's possible. I think most of what we wish for is possible. Oftentimes, I think we lack the courage to count the cost of seeing it happen. And there are costs associated, even for our church. So, we are, from the very beginning, have been proclaiming this message of the transcultural nature of the gospel, that God's goal has always been to form a family for himself, from the first family through the people of Israel, now through the church, and that family would comprise every tribe, tongue, nation, people. That's what Revelation says. And then we want to reflect that. That has been our mantra from day zero. And yet last year, in the midst of almost 2 years now, 2014, the fall, in the midst of a sermon series where we started in Genesis 12, with Abraham's call to be, a father of this, new nation that God was forming, all the way to Revelation. We preached that message through every major section of the scriptures. So from the Torah to the wisdom literature and the songs, through the major prophets and the minor prophets, we just picked verses through those big chunks, through the Gospels, through the epistles to the apocalyptic. Through that sermon series, we lost, we lost conservatively 130 people, which at the time we were a church of 600. So that's a significant shift in population. And for the 50% of those or so, maybe less than that, 30%, I don't want to overestimate it, that were actually covenant members with our church that left. In our exit interviews and our exit conversations, they all gave the same reason once we were able to work through it. They weren't comfortable with the cost of seeing this vision become a reality. One kid actually was gracious enough to admit, yep, I think I'm just racist and I want God to do something in my heart, but I don't know that it's going to happen here. And so, yeah, I think most anything we want to do as faithful and convicted leaders we can do if we have the courage to follow through and count the cost of what it may mean one of your largest tithers, which we lost. Mm-hmm. And for a church of 600 and a tithe of $3,000 a month, you feel that. Mm-hmm. But the vision was worth the cost. Mm-hmm. And so I think if there's an established church that determines, you know what, we see this now. We're going to turn the ship. well, if you count the cost, you'll go forward. And I believe God will be faithful in our faithfulness in that.
Mm-hmm.